Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at some of the key skills needed for reading and writing for functional skills. Now this video is actually following on from one of our previous videos, so last week, where we looked at entry level skills and we're focusing on the theme of YouTube. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build on those skills. We're going to develop a deeper understanding of reading and writing, not just for entry level, but also for level 1 and for level 2. Now if you haven't done so already, please could you like and subscribe. It really does help us out when you do so. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to recall key elements of the functional skills course, understand how to approach reading and writing assessments, and finally, apply your understanding to an exam style question. Now what we're going to do is focus on some of our key reading skills and take a look at typical text that you might get in an assessment. Look at the article below and be ready to answer the questions that follow. Energy drink primed to take over. With over 100 million bottles of their new energy drink being sold, Logan Paul and KSI have grew from humble YouTubers to legitimate businessmen. The energy drink has recorded record sales, competing with some of the best known brands in the market. How did it all start? Logan Paul started posting on YouTube in 2013 and made vlogs, video blogs, which caught the eyes of millions of viewers. His video gained many views and subscribers over the years and brought Paul a wealth of revenue. The YouTube sensation has generated an eye-watering £245 million from his YouTube channel. Branching out. To date, Logan Paul has become a professional actor, media personality, and wrestler. Add all that to the success of his energy drink, and it leaves people asking, is there nothing this man cannot do? Now, when you're actually faced with an exam question and an actual text that goes with it, it might not actually specify whether it is a leaflet, a blog, an article, or any of the other forms of writing that you should now be familiar with. A key indication that this is an article is that we have things like a headline and subheadings as well. Now these are often referred to as organizational features or presentational features. And if we first look at the headline, it says energy drink primed to take over. Now what the writer's actually done here is they've used what we call a pun or a play on words to actually introduce the topic. If you're not too sure what we mean by this, please do check out our other videos that go into it in more detail. Specifically, we have a video just describing what a pun is and how it is used in writing. The article also uses subheadings as well, and this is all used to help break down the text. So it's important to know which subheadings are being used and what they're about, because this is going to actually help you when you look at the reading questions and actually figure out what sections you need to specify on when responding to the key questions. Now what we're going to do is we're going to test our understanding and have a look at a few comprehension questions. Quickfire questions. Test your understanding against the questions below. Number 1. Look at text A. What is meant by the word humble? Number 2. How many bottles of the energy drink have been sold? Number 3. In what year did Logan Paul start his YouTube channel? Number 4. Identify where the writer has used a rhetorical question. And number 5. Look at the line vlogs, video blogs, which caught the eyes of millions of viewers. What is the purpose of the brackets here? Now if you want to pause the video here and go through the questions in your own time, please feel free to do so. It's all about reading the text, getting familiar with it, and being able to use those key skills like skimming and scanning to identify the correct information. We're now going to jump ahead and have a look at the correct answers in the next part of the video. Class feedback. Check your answers against the one below. So the first question was asking us what is meant by the word humble. What we're after here is an appropriate synonym, a word that would actually work to replace that word humble in the sentence, and a good indication of that is to see if the word works in the sentence and if the rest of the sentence still makes sense. So for number 1 then, answers may include but not limited to modest, unassuming and unpretentious. Now all of these are really good words to know. If you're not too sure what they mean, please do have a look and actually research them, or use a thesaurus and actually try to think about using these in your everyday vocabulary as well. Number 2, how many bottles of the energy drink have been sold? And the correct answer is over 100 million bottles have been sold. So quite impressive there. Number 3, in what year did Logan Paul start his YouTube channel? And the correct answer is he started his YouTube channel in 2013. Question 4, identify where the writers used a rhetorical question. Now, a rhetorical question is a really important thing to know. It's often used in a lot of text that we read for the reading assessment, but it's also part of the DeForest techniques that you should be using in your writing assessment as well. So, a rhetorical question has been used in a line, is there nothing this man cannot do? And the final question, number 5, look at the line, vlogs, video blogs, which caught the eyes of millions of viewers. What is the purpose of brackets here? So it's the very typical question that you would get on the reading assessment, and hopefully by now we're all aware that brackets have been used to add additional information, and that's the common way that they're going to be used within any text within the reading assessment. Now that we've been through some of our key skills regarding the reading assessment, we're going to move on, use the same kind of theme or topic, and instead think about a typical writing question that you might get. So it would look something like this then. So writing task. A family friend or relative is thinking about giving up on their education and focusing on becoming a YouTuber. Write an email advising them on this issue. In your response you should use the correct form for an email, use the appropriate tone, use a range of DeForest techniques, and finally, have good technical accuracy. What we mean by this is have a decent level of spelling, grammar, and punctuation, as well as writing in paragraphs. Now, we've said this many times when we look at a writing assessment, but the first thing you need to do whenever you have a question like this is to identify the TAP of the exam question. If you're not sure what we mean by that, we mean the topic, the audience, and the purpose. So if we want to narrow it down, because there is a lot of information there, specifically the topic is about giving up on their education. It's quite a big issue already, to become a YouTuber. Now, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that this is quite a risky endeavour. It's certainly a very new thing that's come about, so you can think about some of the positives or negatives that we might associate with that. The next thing to think about, now that we know what the topic is we need to think about who is the audience. So who are we actually directing this conversation towards? And it says right there at the start, there's going to be a family friend or a relative. And if we use a bit of common sense there, if we're talking about someone giving up on their education, typically we're talking about someone who may be perhaps 16 to 21. Kind of in that age bracket generally is what we mean when we talk about the typical kind of person who are within education. Obviously there are many more of us that are in education still, but generally that's going to be the majority of people who are still studying. The final thing as well would be the purpose. So the purpose is also talking about the form, so how we have to write it. So we're going to write an email and it's going to be giving advice to them. So it's important to be aware that if we are writing an email, you need to set it out in the correct format. And if we're giving advice, think about the kind of tone that would have. And if you think about the actual super challenge that's just come up on the board there, that is the next thing to be thinking about. So what kind of tone or mood should your writing have? This is going to be particularly important because the tone of our writing really helps dictate the kind of impression we're really giving to our reader. So really have a think about the kind of tone you want to use for this question. Final thing then, the mega challenge. Look at the response on the next slide and assess the quality of the writing. Now if you do want to have a go at this writing question, please feel free to do so. You can also use some of the elements within the example as well, just to get you started. Look at the student example. What are some of the positives or some of the negatives of the response? So it says then, hi Tom, I know it's been a while since we last spoke, but I've heard you're thinking of jacking in your college course and just concentrating on this YouTube thingy. Look mate, I just want to say how proud we all are when you decided to stay on. Education is really important. If I could have gone back, I would have jumped at the chance. I know that there's a lot of money to be made from all this new social media stuff, but you need to think about the long term. No one is saying you can't be on YouTube and still stay at college. Maybe do it a weekend thing, yeah? Think about what you really want to be. I've looked into it and it turns out that you need like 1,000 subscribers before you even made a quid. Just think about it, mate. Anyways, see you soon, lad. Mike. If you'd like to pause the video here and look through the response in a bit more detail, please feel free to do so. With a lot of the examples that we look at, there are some positives as well as some negatives as well, so it is important that you take the time and just try and break down the response, see what works well, and see what things might need to be improved upon. Class feedback. Check your understanding against the teacher's comments. So here we have the same response that we've just looked at, and this is the feedback given by the teacher. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on some of the positives, so what went well. And the first thing to point out would be that the learner has used the appropriate tone for an email. So because we're talking to a family friend or a relative, we can understand that using certain colloquial phrases or slang might be appropriate. So saying things like hi is quite colloquial. That's something you'd do if it's quite an informal email. You wouldn't do it, for example, if it was an email to an employer. We also see at the bottom there it says see you soon lad. Again, very typical of the kind of slang that you might find in an informal email. Some language techniques have been used. Now if you think about how the teacher has actually phrased that, the word some actually implies that one or two may have been used, but it hasn't really used a lot or enough to justify getting a really fantastic mark. And we can see we've got a few things like you need like 1,000 subscribers. So they're using some statistics, and we also have a rhetorical question. And I'm sure if you had a look over it, you could probably find a few more examples there, but it's not really enough to get it a reasonable mark within the assessment. It presents a balanced argument. Now this is actually really important, especially when you're giving someone advice, because you don't want to come across as being too negative or too one-sided. If you're giving someone advice, give them some of the good points, some of the bad points, but ultimately make sure that the choice of the matter comes down to their own thoughts and feelings on the matter, especially once you've presented your argument. EBI, so even better if. The response has made many spelling and grammatical errors. Now, one thing that a lot of people find difficult is things like homophones. And homophones are words that sound the same but are spelled different. And we've got them in cases like this with heard. Now heard is spelled correctly, but it's the wrong kind of heard for our writing assessment. So this is the one that should be spelled H-E-A-R-D. And a good lesson to remember with that one is the word with ear in it is the one that we hear. Okay. We've also got several things there like thingy. Now this isn't necessarily a spelling and grammatical mistake, but it does make it sound a little bit clumsy. And we have things like U, as in the letter U instead of Y-O-U. Even though that is quite informal, you have to remember that's going to be more commonly seen within a text message as well. We also have more obvious homophones as well, like would. It's the wrong there as well. It's wrong too. The wrong two again. And then you've got several mistakes like that, and it just kind of goes on really over and over again. So it's important just to make sure that you're double checking these kind of things and that you're reading through your work, especially if you're used to communicating more in, let's say, text message form. It's really easy to fall into that kind of, I don't want to say lazy necessarily, but kind of a bit more laid back approach when we're doing our writing. The final thing to notice then would be that a range of DeForest techniques are needed to gain more marks. Now you don't need to use all of the DeForest techniques, but try and use a healthy range of them. Try to get used to actually using them naturally, and the more you do that, the easier it's going to come when you approach your writing assessment. So now that we've had a look at both reading and writing, we're going to think about this term technical accuracy. So you might have heard me use this quite often in a number of my videos. This is really important, not just for functional skills, but also for GCSE. So what is meant by technical accuracy and how does it affect our writing? So first of all then, technical accuracy, this refers to the fundamental elements of your writing. Specifically, it means spelling, grammar and punctuation. The use of structure, so things like linking your paragraphs and using a variety of sentence structures. Now, if you actually have a look back at the response we've just went through, it actually did vary the sentence structures quite a bit. And this is really important because it makes the writing seem a little bit less mundane, a little less boring, and it helps to emphasize where key points need to be emphasized. So how does it affect our writing? Without having a good standard of technical accuracy, your writing will not appear professional or show a good standard of English. So I know that many people might think that this isn't very important unless you're going to go off and pursue a career related to English. However, every single job would expect a good basic level of English, reading, writing, and of course spelling as well. Look at the statements below. Why do you think they don't make sense? What kind of things do we need to change to make sure they are read the way we want them to be read? So the first one said, let's eat Timmy. Number 2, cows please close gate. Number 3, a woman without her man is nothing. Number 4, a woman without her man is nothing. Stretch and challenge. Why is punctuation important in our writing? So what I'd like you to do now, I want you to have a quick look over the key statements there. You can see, especially when we get to, let's say, 3 and 4, that we have the exact same statement. However, the way that it's been punctuated changes the way that we actually say it. So have a look through each of these statements, try and think about what is wrong with them, what needs to change, and how we might misinterpret it. So for example, number 1 implies that people are going to eat someone, namely Timmy. Let's eat Timmy. So what do we need to change about that so that it doesn't sound quite as strange? Number 2 as well, cows please close gate. Clearly cows are unable to close a gate, so what kind of punctuation or key detail do we need to change about the response so that it makes sense? Now if you want to have a go at this at your own, please feel free to pause the video and look through them. It can be quite a complicated thing to get your head round, so please feel free to take your time. We're going to look at the correct answers in the next part now. Class feedback. Check your answers against the ones below. So if we have a look at number 1 then, instead of actually saying that we're going to eat Timmy, it now says, let's eat Timmy. Now, by the simple use of the comma here, we've actually changed the meaning of the statement. Now, in fact, what we're doing is we're inviting Timmy to join us with the meal. Number 2, cows, please close gate. So now instead of actually making it seem like we're instructing the cows to go and close the gate themselves, we're given a clear warning from the use of the exclamation mark, and then we're instructing people to close the gate as well. Number 3, a woman without her man is nothing. Now, because of the way the comma's been used here, it gives us that little pause after the word man, which is actually sounds quite sexist, because what it is implying in this statement is that a woman is almost worthless without a man. However, if you think about the punctuation and you actually play about with it a little bit, the meaning of it can be changed completely. So now it reads, a woman. Without her, man is nothing. And because we've used a colon indicates that we're going to give a list, and we're going to list things about a woman. Now, without a woman, without the presence of a woman, man is nothing. So you can see there, by just the use of the colon and the comma, the meaning between these two statements are vastly different just from the use of the punctuation. Now, if you're not too sure about this, then please do check out all the videos that go into punctuation in more detail. but just try and have a play around with it and really try and appreciate the effect that punctuation has on our writing as well. If you need any additional help or support, then new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel Bookworm Teaching for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much for listening, guys, and if you've got this far, please do like and subscribe. It really does help us out when you do so. If you do need anything, please leave us a comment, or if there's any video that you'd like us to make, then we'll try to endeavour to make one to best suit your needs. Thanks again, guys, and all the best with your work and revision in the future. Bye bye.